towards the end of the game, there was an object thrown on the field that we all chuckle about. It's not the first time it's happened in Buffalo, but it did happen on national TV and a playoff game where forever will probably be known as that sort of game. But look, this is what happens when you dominate another team for 20 years. It gets built up. And the way the first meeting of these two teams went down when it was in a torrential windstorm. Is there such thing as torrential windstorm? Usually we say torrential rainstorm, but it was like gale force winds. That's what we always say, right? Gale force. Does anybody know what the cutoff is for gale? Like, what is the miles per hour that establishes it as gale force winds? Like, I know what a hurricane wind started at certain miles per hour. What is gale force? Hit me up at Gottlieb Show.
I don't know.
Me neither. The Patriots got their asses handed to them. And much like people like watching the Dallas Cowboys lose, a great number of people like watching Bill Belichick get it handed to him. Here's Josh Allen.
We're able to hand it to Motor, and he's making guys miss and dragging guys and getting 7-8 yards on first down. Just the efficiency that it brings you. We have this concept that we like to call playing in the green and skipping some third downs, and you're able to hand the ball off, skip third downs, and you're typically going to have success.
That was probably the biggest thing, right, is that here you had a team that struggled to run the football all year is able to run the football, and an offense which was clearly and totally and completely befuddled by the Bills' defense. And they could do. Mac Jones looked like a rookie quarterback starting in the playoffs on the road. Now, does that mean to me that you get rid of Mac Jones? No. No, doesn't mean you get rid of Mac Jones. It just to me says that Mac Jones is a rookie. That's what most rookies look like. He didn't play well. They didn't play well. And look, the Bills are better than there's a reason the Bills were picked to win the Super Bowl by many a smart NFL analyst. Like, dudes way smarter than me, know way more football than me. Go back and look, and a lot of them are like, you know what I like? I like the Bills. And, of course, it sets up a matchup with a team that's been the best team in the AFC for the last 3 years, who did their own ass-kicking of the Steelers going back to last night. Okay? And the Bills are really built to beat the Chiefs more than they are to beat, say, the Titans. So we'll get to that game upcoming. But, man, that was a whooping. And even the most ardent Patriot supporter, even the most crazy Patriot fan who is in denial of any sort of negativity over the past 20 years, Spygate was BS, Deflategate was worse, etc., etc., etc. That was when you're like, man, this is what it feels like to be the other side. This is what it feels like to be the other side. It feels like I'm on the, and everyone catches one now and again, right? Everyone catches a whooping. And look, to people who are like, well, Brady, and it's a completely different football team. Would they have been better if they had Tom Brady quarterback? Yeah. But I don't think people actually accurately remember that 2 years ago when they're in the playoffs, they didn't have skill position guys then. Their defense was aging, and they tried to just run the football, and they got beaten by a Tennessee team at home. Like, that wasn't a great Patriot team. Last year, between the opt-outs and the salary cap issues, and this year they went all in order to rebuild that defense, and for the most part it worked. It got them back to the playoffs. Of course I think Mac Jones has a lower ceiling than other guys. And I wonder, do you bring Jimmy G back? How do you handle it? But this idea that the Patriots have to completely start all over is laughable. That's what they did this offseason, and it ended up in the playoffs. And teams don't go from starting over to reaching a Super Bowl. That just doesn't happen that way. It doesn't. And no, Mac Jones is not Patrick Mahomes. He is not. But you know who wasn't available at the 15th pick in the first round of the draft? Pat Mahomes. right? It's like we want to make this whole thing out to be like, well, he didn't okay. Brady wasn't coming back. He was done. He wanted to try something else. We're like a year and a half removed from that decision. So when you don't have a quarterback, what were your options? What have been your options? Bro, last year with 8 opt-outs, with a litany of injuries, with a quarterback who couldn't throw a football, who's a backup to a backup in Carolina now, they still won 7 games. They still won 7 games. So I'm not I don't think you absolutely hit refresh. I think you figured out that's big boy football. And remember, I said this last week, and I don't know if you're going to hear this everywhere else. This is what happens when teams that aren't really the 7 or 8 best, the 7 best other teams, that's what really, really happens. What, 7 best in each conference, right? That's what happens when 2 or so sneak in that aren't really playoff teams. Ask anybody that matters. You don't have. If you say, "Hey, Gottlieb, you don't matter," that's fine. I'm okay with that. You can think I don't know anything that I'm talking about. It's fine. Ask people that matter, and they'll tell you the Chargers not being in the playoffs is embarrassing to the Chargers. You can't throw out a team that has Joey Bosa, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, a much better offensive line. Like, they have Derwin James. They're not in the playoffs. The Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, and the LA Chargers are 2 of the most talented teams in football, and the Ravens are not far behind. Right? Those are 3 of the elite in terms of, if you just line up, the Ravens had 17 guys go on IR. I think the Browns are just a couple light of it, plus Baker sucked, and he was hurt, and the Chargers found a way to charge her and lose their next to last game to the Houston Texans. So we could sit there and go like, well, the Patriots, of course the Patriots weren't that good. We know this. We're aware. They weren't one of the 7 best teams in the AFC. Neither were the Raiders. And when you get bumped up to that next level, you get exposed as such.